Hi again, Tom Long here, the middle-aged musician, and it's been a couple of weeks since I've posted a new episode. I wanted to try to catch up with everyone before the Thanksgiving holiday. Might be a good time to actually do some things like this to give someone like myself something to do, or someone like you that are listening something different to listen to. As you can probably tell, I am on the road again. I'm actually in the process of heading to one of 3 gigs this weekend. I have 2 gigs at the same place tonight and tomorrow, and then another gig on Sunday at my standing gig over in Gatlinburg. So the other 2 gigs are in the Townsend area. And with the rest of the country going into semi-lockdown with the virus, and obviously a lot of other things happening, the Great Smoky Mountains National Park and all of the tourist towns that are within the shadows are booming. We are up there every weekend just about, and there are always at least 10 different states represented on the car tags that we see. So their mask mandate is still in place here, will be through the end of the year, and that's inside of businesses. I think they are actually requesting for people to wear them outside, excuse me, but don't know that it's mandated to wear outside. And you definitely, if you get out up into the mountains, like on the trails and things, I don't know that I've ever seen anyone wear a mask out on the trail. But anyhow, we are still seeing good economic recovery here in the eastern portion of the Tennessee, western part of North Carolina. So kind of talking about the gigs that I have this weekend, I wanted to talk a little bit more about equipment and setups and things of that nature, just kind of expanding a little bit on one of the other episodes, touching on probably a few things like the preparation, etc. So the gig that I have going on this weekend, especially tonight and tomorrow, is actually going to require more equipment than I typically carry with me. It's a much bigger venue. It's outdoors for one session, and then the second session is going to be indoors. But both of the setups will require a little more power, a little more thump, so to speak. So that has caused me to have to rent some equipment. I've actually picked some up from a guy I know, and then I'm going to have to rent some additional pieces to kind of build everything out. But on the podcast, I wanted to discuss assessing those things and understanding that you have options. You're not required to just be at the beck and call of the venue. And if you're a musician of any ilk or any worth, so to speak, you'll be concerned about that. I have done venues that the equipment was woefully under monetized and really underutilized in some cases. So let me talk about that for just a second. So I've had venues where the equipment was the equivalent of a dollar store karaoke box, and you don't do yourself nor your patrons any favors by trying to fit the square peg into a round hole. And by that I mean if the equipment that is at the venue is just absolute crap and there is nothing you can do to adjust the system to make it sound somewhat palatable, you're almost better off not using it at all. Bringing your own system, or borrowing a system, or just running just total acoustic with nothing at all, depending on the venue. If it's a large venue and the system is junk, then if you don't have a system with you that you can augment or replace with, then I would probably, and might even just not even do the gig. That's where writers on agreements come in very, very handy to make sure that the type of equipment that you will be asked to use is adequate. One time I actually went to a venue and they had a lot of equipment, but it was all 40 or 50 years old. I think the horns were blown on a couple of the speakers. But the guy that was kind of showing me around and kind of helping me to get the lay of the land, he was all like, yeah, we use it every week and it's great. There's no problems hearing. And I'm looking at this guy as if he has 3 heads, thinking, do you hear anything at all? So I had to kind of finagle my way through that, and actually had a system with me, and I used the excuse, well, I'm more comfortable with my system. I can set it to the room dynamics, etc. So appreciate the offer. There was another venue that I went to, however, that had installed a new system, and I mean, a brand new sound design board. They had Apogee speakers. Trying to think, they had some really high-end wireless mics. Basically, they had a lot of money, but what they didn't have is they didn't have a trained sound person. And 2 of the guys that they had they wanted to be there about like a COVID patient wants to be on a respirator. They were just there, I guess, because of the paycheck. They didn't know what they were doing. They were jerks. It was a horrible experience. I've played that venue a couple of times since. Neither of those guys were there. In fact, the one guy who was really a major league butthole he's left the community. I don't know where he's at. But the people that they replaced those 2 with are not, from a trainability scale, they're not that very high, or training. They don't have the training, but they're very workable. And if you just tell them which knob to turn and how far to turn it, and then give them some open-ended parameters. And one of the guys is young. He's maybe in his late teens, early 20s. So his ear's still pretty decent. They work to make it sound good, and they want it to sound good, because to them it's pleasing as well. They're not there just to grab a paycheck. They actually want everything to be good. So that part is kind of cool. And occasionally you will find those. I was at a gig down in Mexico one time. And the guy who was running everything was a gringo, and he had bought the stuff, had it shipped down. It was down right outside of Cabo San Lucas, a little town called Los Barelas. And he had no lows whatsoever, no bass at all turned on his system. I mean, it was all treble, all mids, and it was very tin can. And so he was an older guy, and he was very, very worried about, now don't blow this thing up. This is how I make my living now, and I need someone that knows what they're doing if they're going to do anything. And so I told him, I said, let me just work on one channel here and show you a little bit of what the difference is. And so before the night was over, we had his system re-EQ'd. And a couple of the people that worked there at the bar come up and said, thank you so much for doing that. We cringe every time this dude walks in. Nice guy, and has really worked hard to fit in the local culture there, but just doesn't know what he's doing when it comes to sound reinforcement or any of that type of stuff. So we've had a few experiences through life that we've had to kind of balance and juggle through. And that happens. Quite frankly, the gig that I do almost every Sunday is a little bit along the same lines, in that the system is very small, but the venue that we're in, it works, and it's not the best, but it's not the worst. In fact, they had 2 other systems, and I went through all 3 that they had, and I said, all right, of the 3 that you have, this is the best. And unless you're ready to drop some change on something else, then I would recommend you just go with this one and put the others as doorstops or whatever, maybe give them to somebody. So that happens, and that's a part of it. For the gigs that I'm talking specifically about, though, where you need supplemental equipment, what I've learned is that, especially if you can get the promoter or the venue manager, site manager, to go ahead and advance the cash to do it, and show them, give them receipts and tell them what your plan is and why you have that plan. To me, that works out the best, because then you can go and really make their event a success. Nothing screams cheapo or hack job as much as you spend all the money on the food and all the other things, the other niceties that you put out for these type of events, and then your entertainment is like not even subpar. It's like below the table. And it's even worse when the issue is not because the person you've hired is bad. It's that what you've given, the tools you've given them to work with are horrible. So I generally like to visit the venue, like I've said in other episodes, if I can. If not, I'll go online, take a look at it, or I'll just call someone. Especially if I know someone that's been there before, I'll ping them and just get their opinion and ask what's happened. Have they had any issues with the equipment? And if they have, then what can they tell me? What I do know about this particular setup is, like I said earlier, a portion of the event will be outdoors, and so you're going to need something that will pierce through the kind of the local sound pollution, which hopefully there won't be too much of that. We will be a little bit in seclusion, but you want the sound to be as natural as possible, not sound like you're in an auditorium, because you're going to have your natural reverb and sort of that acoustic effect outside without overproducing those type of things. And then, but for me, when I use a system, and the system that I'm going to use, the system is not bassy enough. It's not, to me, it's not warm enough for indoor nor outdoor. It's almost, for a really small room, it's fine. But when you get into large spaces, the presence factor really goes away pretty quick, and it just sounds very shallow and very narrow in the presentation. So I'm actually going to, this is a system that has two tins with two tweeters, two horns on it, and I'm going to add a 12-inch sub to it to kind of give it that bottom. And I think once I go into the indoor portion, because it's a two-phase set, then I should be able to position the 12-inch sub maybe up against a cabinet or a bar or something, just to help it reverberate a little bit and vibrate. The event manager doesn't want a nightclub feel. They just want something that's very casual but warm, and so that's what we're going for. Additionally, because where this venue is at, which by that I mean it is not close to any major retail places, certainly no music stores in the area, I'm actually going to carry additional like guitars and things of that nature, because if something happens, I need to have a backup plan fairly quick. I will say this though, the acoustic part of it, if I needed to, I could probably limp along enough to just get the string change, if you pop a string. But if you have electronics issue or things of that nature, and I do have an extra mic in the bag, but since I'm running my guitar directly through the system, if you have an electronics issue, you definitely want to make sure that you have a good backup plan, unless I just mic it with a 57 or a 58, and then I have a couple of perimeter mics as well. So it's always a good idea too, I would say this as well, that if you can get there early and do a dry run the day before, or sometime before, to where you can make some adjustments, that's always preferential. I'll have that ability, because after the sets tonight, if something is just horrific, hopefully I'll have time tomorrow before the sets tomorrow start, and I can, if I need to pick up some additional equipment, or if I need to just not even worry about the additional stuff, because certainly the less I carry, the better I like it. And I think that's about it. Again, some of this stuff is just all mundane things, unless you have never done it. And if you've never done it, then all of a sudden you find yourself, in that panic mode of, what do I do? Do I have to go buy a new system? And the answer is no. You can rent products. We have a guitar center. We also have some local music stores around as well. I tend to prefer to work with the local guys, but the ones that I checked with didn't have exactly what I needed. So the Guitar Center here, they're pretty cool, and even though they are a big box, they don't really feel like it. The local folks that work are really helpful, and you don't deal too much with the pompous. This is above me. I'm just doing this before I strike it rich, I guess. So I enjoy that. Like I said, good weekend up ahead, I believe, and one that's going to be busy, and also make a little money, which is always nice, especially with the holidays coming up. Speaking of which, I hope you and yours have a very safe and healthy and enjoyable Thanksgiving holiday. I do not have any. I have one gig the following weekend, but over the holidays, actually just working my normal job and taking off for Thanksgiving Day to be with family, which I'm looking forward to as well. Well, thanks again for listening, for subscribing, for sharing. If you like what you hear, sure would like to get some comments and feedback from you. Had a couple. If you don't like what you hear, if you have recommendations and things of that nature, thoughts on what you would like to hear about, shoot me a message. You can do it through, I think we're on most of the major podcasting platforms now, and still have the website stuff in the works, just kind of back burner because of life, basically. But love to hear from you, and do appreciate if you're subscribing and sharing and telling others about it. And also love to hear your stories. I actually think there is a way on one of the platforms too that you can actually call and leave a voicemail. So if you call me and leave your number and all that, I can call you back, or you'll leave a message. So if you want to try that out, that's cool too. Hey, thanks a lot. Again, be safe, be well, and hang in there. We will eventually get through all of the craziness of 2020. Bye now.